June 22, 1969, at 10:40 a.m. Address: Apartment 4 Cadogan Lane, Belgravia, London. The scene showed no signs of external violence or weapons. There was only the body of a 47-year-old female slumped on the toilet, head bowed. There was no suicide note. The initial autopsy report by Dr. Gavin Thurston, the coroner for Westminster, recorded the cause of death as an incautious self-overdosage of barbiturates. The official forensic report finalized this event with a cold, clinical conclusion. According to Dr. Gavin Thurston's 1969 forensic investigation conclusion, this is clearly a physiological accident occurring to a person who had been accustomed to using barbiturates over a very long period. The victim inadvertently ingested a quantity of chemicals that exceeded the body's maximum tolerance level. There is absolutely no evidence of suicide. However, detailed medical records exposed a physical deterioration far more brutal than a standard accidental overdose. The victim's liver structure showed signs of chronic damage due to decades of metabolizing chemicals. Body weight had severely dropped and the central nervous system was depleted. The victim was Frances Ethel Gumm, known to the world as Judy Garland, a brand asset that once generated tens of millions of dollars for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. The death at the London apartment was not the beginning of the tragedy. It was the inevitable outcome of a systematic physiological erosion spanning 31 years, initiated by a massive corporate machine in Culver City, California. The moment Garland's heart stopped beating at the age of 47 was merely a delayed death knell for a process of labor exploitation and medical manipulation legalized by contract clauses. One does not die suddenly from a single dose of Seconal. One dies because the system stripped away their capacity for independent survival before their nerve cells had even fully developed. In 1939, the global box office revenue for The Wizard of Oz hit the $3 million mark during its initial release, equivalent to about $65 million adjusted for today's inflation, making it one of the most profitable and influential projects in cinematic history. At the center of this money-printing machine was a 16-year-old girl, Judy Garland. Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM, fully understood the value of illusion. Garland was positioned as the girl next door, pure, energetic, and always wearing a radiant smile. Millions of American audiences bought tickets, purchased records, and consumed the image of an optimistic, innocent America through the wide eyes and soaring voice of Dorothy Gale. But behind the velvet curtain, Louis B. Mayer did not view her as a human being. In closed-door meetings, he frequently utilized psychological manipulation to completely reshape the young girl's perception of herself. According to Judy Garland's unfinished memoir audio tapes, she recounted, "He called me my little hunchback. They constantly drilled into my head that I was too fat, too ugly, that I was nothing but a voice, and if I didn't obey every order from the studio, I would be thrown out on the street." This innocence was not a natural trait. It was an engineered product backed by enormous PR expenses. That glamorous picture entirely concealed a ruthless legal and medical reality behind the studio gates. Garland's contract with MGM was not merely an acting agreement. It was a document yielding total control over a minor's body and time. To maintain the petite, girl-next-door image, MGM implemented a strict physiological control strategy. Garland was not allowed to develop naturally. Records indicate she was forced to adhere to a brutal diet, chicken soup, black coffee, and smoking 80 cigarettes a day to suppress her appetite. More importantly, to ensure the film production assembly line operated continuously without pause, medical intervention was systematized. The studio doctors began calculatingly dispensing stimulant pills to force actors to work 18-hour days. The illusion of a joyful musical prodigy on screen was, in reality, maintained by a toxic chemical regimen, overseen not by preventive healthcare professionals, but by the corporate board of finance. In the 1940s, the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer studio did not function as an art center, but operated under the model of a closed industrial complex. Within that model, actors were classified as consumable supplies. In Judy Garland's case, the exploitation did not stop at financial figures, but directly invaded her central nervous system. MGM's shooting schedule records noted that Garland's shifts frequently lasted 18 hours, 6 days a week, continuously rolling from one project to another. To sustain this unnatural production pace, MGM established a brutal chemical regimen, monitored and dispensed directly by the corporation's internal medical system. Garland herself chillingly described this cycle of stimulation and suppression in her unfinished autobiography. "They forced us to work day and night without rest, to keep us standing on our feet despite being exhausted, they gave us stimulant pills. Then, when the shoot ended, they took us to the studio infirmary and knocked us out with sleeping pills. 4 hours later, they woke us up again, gave us more stimulants, and sent us back to the set. Specifically, regarding the stimulation cycle, every early morning, studio medical staff would provide Garland and other child actors with stimulants, typically amphetamines in the form of Benzedrine, to force their nervous systems into a state of extreme alertness, maintaining artificial energy on set for dozens of hours. Regarding the suppression cycle, when filming ended late at night, Garland's overstimulated body could not naturally fall asleep. To ensure this asset could wake up on time the next morning, the system further intervened with powerful sedatives like Seconal or Nembutal to forcibly disconnect her brain. This cycle of stimulation and suppression repeated daily throughout her adolescent years, the most critical stage of physiological development. Her biological mother, Ethel Gumm, who directly benefited from her daughter's payroll, not only failed to intervene, but also worked closely with the studio executives to ensure her daughter strictly adhered to this regimen. The medical consequence was an irreversible chain reaction. Garland's neural receptor system was destroyed, leading to chronic insomnia, anxiety disorders, and total chemical dependency to regulate basic biological functions. Instead of providing diagnostic treatment, MGM doctors continually increased the dosages, turning a healthy teenager into a medical addict to serve the musical film assembly line. In 1950, Judy Garland's 28-year-old body began to collapse under the weight of more than a decade of chemical poisoning and physical exhaustion. During the production of the film Annie, Get Your Gun, her nervous and physical breakdown caused her to be continuously late or absent from the set. The corporate machine immediately activated its disposal protocol. According to a 1950 internal MGM memo, the fateful telegram sent from the executive office officially severed all of the actress's safety nets, stating clearly, "To Miss Garland, based on your continuous failure to comply with the scheduled filming itinerary, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios officially suspends indefinitely all of your compensation and contractual benefits from this moment forward." On June 17, 1950, MGM officially suspended Judy Garland's employment. By September of that year, her long-term contract was completely terminated. The machine had drained the biological value of The Girl Next Door, reaping tens of millions of dollars in global box office revenue, and now they tossed her dilapidated remains out past the empire's borders. Accompanying the severance of her financial network was a massive information blockade and media manipulation campaign. Regarding the corporation's whitewashing campaign, MGM's PR department began releasing press releases to steer public opinion, branding Garland with labels such as unprofessional, psychologically unstable, and difficult to work with. All responsibility for her condition was entirely deflected as personal fault. Absolutely no financial reports or medical records from the studio mentioned that they themselves had forced her to use medical narcotics for 15 years. Regarding financial dissipation, despite being one of the most profitable stars in MGM's history, Garland left the studio in a state of severe financial crisis. Her earnings during her golden era had been systematically siphoned off by managers, agents, ex-husbands, and massive income taxes due to financial mismanagement. No contingency trust fund was ever established to protect her interests. Over the next 2 decades, this cover-up allowed MGM to maintain a spotless brand image, continuing to profit from national television broadcasting rights to The Wizard of Oz every year. Meanwhile, their victim had to wander across stages from America to Europe, wrestling with seizures, liver failure, and mounting tax debts, continually forced to buy sedatives on the black market just to sustain a remnant of life in exchange for sporadic singing fees. The system succeeded in burying the truth beneath velvet curtains and non-disclosure agreements. In 1970, less than a year after Frances Ethel Gumm died in a state of exhaustion on a bathroom floor in London, a large-scale MGM asset auction was held in Culver City. The sparkling ruby slippers she wore in The Wizard of Oz were hammered down at a price of $15,000 and later reached millions of dollars on the international collector's market. At that same time, the federal tax debt Garland left to her children amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars, due to poor management and the financial siphoning structure set up by her representatives. This numerical asymmetry is the ultimate proof of a perfect exploitation process. The corporate machine established an ecosystem of eternal profit. MGM and the entities that subsequently purchased the rights continued to distribute, broadcast, and rake in billions of dollars in commercial royalties from the image of Dorothy Gale. Every Thanksgiving, millions of American families sit in front of their televisions to watch The Wizard of Oz, unconsciously consuming an entertainment product labeled as a pop culture icon. However, under an independent investigative lens, the original film reels of The Wizard of Oz or Meet Me in St. Louis are not merely artistic legacies, they are archival records of a systemic crime scene. The soaring vocals when performing the song Over Extreme Rainbow were the result of vocal cords coerced into operating under the stimulating effects of amphetamines. The radiant smile and light footsteps on the yellow brick road were physiological reflexes maintained by punitive measures, threats of termination, and food embargoes from the board of directors. The legal system protecting child labor of that era, typified by the loopholes in the Coogan Act, proved entirely powerless. There was absolutely no independent medical oversight mechanism established to intervene in the studio's absolute power. The calculated ignorance of legislators, combined with the massive profit margins of the board of directors and the complicity of the legal guardian herself, turned the body and nervous system of a minor into a physiological goldmine. Judy Garland's death at age 47 was not a random medical tragedy caused by substance abuse. It was the inevitable asset depreciation and biological disposal process of a product life cycle that had been drained of its utility. Decades later, when the public continues to buy tickets to watch remakes and listen to restored recordings, they are essentially paying to observe the leftover fragments of a body crushed by the entertainment industrial process. The true legacy left behind by the Hollywood machine is not timeless songs, but a flawless blueprint on how to weaponize talent, legalize chemical poisoning, and convert cellular destruction into box office revenue.